Welcome to William Health Insights. If you're over 60 and you've noticed that getting out of a chair takes more effort, climbing stairs feels harder than it used to, or your legs simply don't feel as strong as they once did, there's something important you need to know. Losing strength with age may be common, but that doesn't mean you should simply ignore it. One of the major concerns as we grow older is age related loss of muscle mass and function, often referred to as sarcopenia. And here's what makes it especially important: muscle loss can develop gradually. You may not notice a dramatic change from one day to the next, but over time, everyday activities can become noticeably more difficult. And this is where your morning routine becomes interesting. Many people spend years focusing on what they should avoid at dinner, how much they should walk, or which supplements they should take, while paying surprisingly little attention to breakfast. But after an overnight fast, your first meal is an opportunity to give your body protein, energy, vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients it needs throughout the day. The problem is that many popular breakfast choices are filling without necessarily providing enough high quality protein or overall nutrition to support healthy aging. So, today we're going to look at 5 common breakfast habits that may be worth reconsidering after 60, followed by 5 foods you can use to build a more muscle friendly breakfast. And make sure you stay until the final food, because one of the simplest changes on this list can dramatically increase the amount of high quality protein in an otherwise ordinary breakfast without requiring expensive supplements, complicated recipes, or a completely new diet. Before we begin, tell me something in the comments. How old are you and what country are you watching from? And if you've noticed changes in your strength, balance, walking speed, or ability to get up from a chair, tell me about that too. You may be surprised by how many other people are experiencing the same thing. To understand why breakfast matters, we first need to understand something about muscle. Your muscles are not permanent structures that simply stay the same until old age. Muscle tissue is metabolically active and constantly undergoing processes of breakdown, maintenance, and rebuilding. Protein provides amino acids that your body uses for many purposes, including maintaining muscle tissue. Physical activity, especially resistance exercise, also gives your body a powerful reason to preserve and strengthen muscle. But aging changes the equation. Older adults can become less responsive to smaller amounts of dietary protein, which is one reason protein quality, total daily intake, and how protein is distributed across meals can become increasingly important. In other words, having nearly all of your protein at dinner while eating a very low protein breakfast may not be the most useful pattern for everyone. That brings us to the first breakfast mistake: relying heavily on refined carbohydrates while leaving protein almost completely off the plate. Think about a typical breakfast of white toast with jam, a sweet pastry, or another refined carbohydrate eaten by itself. There's nothing magical about one slice of bread that suddenly causes muscle to disappear. The bigger issue is what that breakfast may be replacing. If most of your breakfast comes from refined carbohydrates and contains very little protein, you've missed an easy opportunity to give your body amino acids early in the day. The solution doesn't necessarily mean banning bread forever. Instead, change what surrounds it. If you enjoy toast, consider pairing it with eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, nut butter, or another protein-rich food appropriate for your diet. Add fruit or vegetables for additional nutrients and fiber. Suddenly, the same breakfast becomes far more nutritionally complete. And this distinction is important throughout this video. Healthy aging is rarely about identifying one evil food. It's about patterns. What are you eating regularly? What nutrients are missing? What foods are replacing more nutritious choices? Those questions are much more useful than simply labeling individual foods good or bad. Now let's talk about the second morning habit: using coffee as breakfast. Coffee itself is not automatically the enemy. In fact, coffee contains numerous bioactive compounds and can fit into a healthy diet for many people. The problem begins when someone wakes up, drinks 2 or 3 cups of coffee, eats virtually nothing, and then goes several hours without consuming meaningful nutrition. Coffee can make you feel temporarily alert, but alertness and nourishment are not the same thing. Caffeine cannot replace protein. It cannot replace essential amino acids, and it cannot provide all the nutrients contained in a balanced meal. This matters particularly for an older adult whose appetite has decreased. Some people simply don't feel hungry in the morning anymore. They drink coffee, become even less interested in eating, and suddenly it's lunchtime before they've consumed a substantial amount of protein. So if you love your morning coffee, you may not need to eliminate it. Instead, ask a better question. What are you eating with it? Could you have your coffee alongside Greek yogurt and berries, eggs and whole grain toast, cottage cheese and fruit, a protein-rich smoothie? That small shift turns coffee from your breakfast into something you enjoy with breakfast. The third breakfast habit deserves special attention because it can look like a high-protein choice. Eating processed meat frequently, bacon, sausage, ham, and other processed meats can contain protein, which is why people sometimes assume they're ideal foods for maintaining muscle. But protein content is only one part of the nutritional picture. Many processed meats can also contain substantial amounts of sodium and saturated fat, and frequent consumption of processed meat is generally something health-conscious adults may want to limit. The good news is that you don't have to give up a savory breakfast. You simply have better options. Eggs can provide high-quality protein. Plain Greek yogurt can provide substantial protein with very little preparation. Cottage cheese can work surprisingly well in savory breakfasts. Leftover fish or chicken may sound unusual at breakfast, but there's no biological rule saying protein-rich foods belong only at lunch or dinner. Remember this principle. After 60, breakfast doesn't have to look like traditional breakfast food. Your muscles don't care whether the protein came from an egg at 8 a.m. or a piece of salmon. Your body recognizes nutrients, not meal labels. Now we come to mistake number 4, and this one requires an important clarification because many people have heard conflicting information, assuming oatmeal alone is a complete muscle-building breakfast. Oats can absolutely be part of a healthy diet. They provide fiber and useful nutrients, and they can be a convenient breakfast. The problem is not oatmeal itself. The problem is eating a bowl that contains mostly oats, a little fruit, perhaps a small amount of milk, and assuming you've automatically created an ideal breakfast for muscle maintenance. Depending on how it's prepared, that meal may contain less protein than you think. Fortunately, oatmeal is one of the easiest breakfasts to upgrade. Instead of asking, "Should I stop eating oatmeal?" ask, "How can I add more protein to my oatmeal?" You might add Greek yogurt after cooking. You could prepare oats with dairy or fortified soy milk instead of water if appropriate for you. You might add nuts or seeds. Some people use cottage cheese or a suitable protein powder. Suddenly, a carbohydrate-dominant breakfast becomes a more balanced meal containing carbohydrates, fiber, healthy fats, and significantly more protein. This brings us to the 5th mistake, trusting the front of a cereal box more than the actual nutritional profile. Walk down almost any supermarket cereal aisle and you'll see phrases like whole grain, fortified, heart healthy, or source of vitamins. Those labels may describe genuine characteristics, but they don't automatically mean that cereal alone provides everything an older adult needs at breakfast. Some cereals contain relatively little protein and may contain substantial added sugar. Again, the issue isn't that every cereal is inherently harmful. The problem is assuming that a bowl of cereal automatically equals a complete breakfast.